Welcome to Building Better Relationships with Chuck and Barb Lewis, equipping listeners and viewers with the biblical tools to conquer the difficulties faced in this life. Chuck has practiced crisis intervention since the 1980s and has been in ministry together with his wife Barb for over 20 years. They've taken the countless lessons and the knowledge they've acquired and have put them into this life skills class to share with you. We hope this blesses you.
Well, hello, I'm Pastor Chuck Lewis, and this is my wife.
I'm Barbara.
And we're so excited to be with you again today. And we've been talking about kindness and how to live in kindness.
Yeah, and there was so much that we didn't get to cover, so I feel like we needed to do a part 2 on kindness.
Yes.
I did want to read you a verse in the Bible. This is Isaiah 54:10 in the Amplified. It says, "For the mountains may be removed and the hills be shaken, yet my loving kindness will not be removed from you, nor will my covenant of peace be shaken, says the Lord who has compassion on you." And loving kindness in the original language means more than just simply being kind. I just want to review that again. It means giving yourself fully and completely with love and compassion, and it's the idea of faithful love in action. And God's loving kindness is faithful. It's not here one day and gone the next, like we experience sometimes with people, depending on what kind of mood they're in. God isn't moody. He doesn't remove his love and his kindness. And so we receive that loving kindness from God.
Right.
And what we want to talk more about today is our kindness toward others. And one thing we didn't get to talk about last time was being kind even in the midst of conflict. I do remember one time you and I having a conflict, and I was angry, and so I wasn't very kind, and I had to go back. I had to take the time to de-escalate, take a time out. And then I had to come back to you and say, "I'm really sorry. I wasn't very kind when I said that." And just because I was upset did not give me a right to be unkind to you. And you really appreciated that.
Absolutely.
So that kind of gets us back to how can we stay kind? And one thing you like to talk about is how can we be kind and still talk about the things that aren't working?
Yeah, because some people think, well, how do we talk about issues and be kind at the same time? That's impossible, isn't it?
And it is, when you think about what you want your end result to be.
Yeah.
It isn't, because and you're very good at end result thinking, and I feel like I've learned a lot about that from you.
Thank you.
But if you truly want resolution, then, and you come at that person with an angry tone of voice and angry words, you are not going to have a good outcome.
No.
And that's why it's so important to take a time out when you're escalated, because if your real goal is to get to resolution, then you've got to say it in a kind and respectful way.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, because I've talked to many people that have said literally, I think it's impossible to talk about issues and still be kind, because how do you do that? See?
Yeah. Well, it takes practice and self-control and a choice.
It takes a lot of those things, and it depends on how escalated the situation is, but if you start talking about an issue and you find yourself saying a lot of unkind things to each other because it's making you mad, it's making you upset, well, then you need to call a timeout and say, let's pick this up in 10 minutes or an hour or whatever. Try not to go longer than an hour if you can, because it's too easy to postpone it for indefinitely if you go too long.
But sometimes you have to, and there's been times when you and I've had to.
Yeah.
We've had to talk 3 times.
Yes.
And sometimes it has to be the next day. But because I've noticed for me, the more time I give myself, the better I'm able to detach from the feelings and listen to what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and see, there's signals along the way that lets us know that we're not ready to keep talking.
Like triggers, things that trigger you.
Yeah, if I'm being triggered by the things that I'm hearing you say, and you're talking, but I'm building my case.
Yes, so you're not really listening
No,
when you're doing
I'm
that.
not listening to what you're saying. I'm
Right.
trying to win my case. I become like a defense attorney at that moment.
Yeah.
So that's not going to accomplish anything, and it's not going to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
See, it's not about winning. It's about really hearing each other,
Mhm.
validating each other's feelings. You don't have to agree. You don't have to even feel the same feelings to validate.
And that's a kind thing to do,
It's
to
totally,
listen and validate the other person's feelings.
yeah. But it goes against your flesh because your flesh is not feeling that way at that
Right.
moment. But you can choose to do that just like you can choose to be toxic and
Yes.
disrespectful.
Yes.
It's all a choice.
Yeah, and you said it helps you to think about, if it's me you're upset about, or really anybody else, that I'm God's daughter. And
He
so
told me that one day.
and I'm valuable to him.
Yeah.
And since I'm valuable to him, I need to be valuable to you.
I was thinking in my mind a lot of things that I could say to her. And I was out in the garage and I was about to come in the house and say the things that I was thinking, and it wasn't kind things at all. And so I was trying to justify that in my mind, thinking, well, it's truth, and I need to tell her the truth, and it might hurt, but she needs to know the truth. And I'll never forget it, Barb. I mean, it wasn't an audible voice, but it might as well have been because it was so clear. God spoke to my spirit and he said, "That is my daughter. And I want you to really be careful what you say." Wow. I'll never forget that. And so I
God was
changed a lot of
protecting
things.
me.
Well, God was because he loves us and he loves you and he loves me and he wants us to be honored and he wants us to be cherished by
Yes.
each other. And our words can either affirm that or destroy that. So let the words of your mouth and the meditation of your heart be acceptable in God's sight. That's what the Bible says. And that's a choice.
Yeah. And so basically, one big thing that you're saying is being kind is also giving up your right to retaliate.
Yes. Yes.
And boy,
That's a big one.
if it hits our injustice button, we want to retaliate.
We won't want to retaliate and then we'll repent later.
Yeah. So that's a big deal, to give up your right to retaliate.
Years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver when I was in my 20s, and it totally changed my life. Put me in the hospital. I'm laying in traction. I couldn't work. I didn't know when I would be able to be on my feet again. And I remember somebody saying, "You've got to pray for your enemies," right? Then that guy felt like an enemy to me
Oh boy,
at
I
that
guess.
moment. So I started praying for him. But I started praying he'd walk out in front of trucks and fall down the elevator shafts and, be poisoned or whatever. And then I begin to realize, oh man, I don't think this is what God meant when he said pray for him. So I had to forgive him by the act of my will. And it took a process of time, but every time I think about him in a negative way, I would forgive him all over again. And I can honestly say that a few weeks went by, and I never met the guy, but if I would have been able to meet him at that time, after I forgave him, I could truly say to him, "I forgive you for getting drunk and for running into our car that night and changing my life forever." And mean it.
Yeah.
Not just say the words, but mean it from my heart. Well, we can either stay in the victim role, or we can choose to forgive and be free.
So it's taking responsibility for your own uh, thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I would have said, "Well, I'll never forgive him. He doesn't deserve forgiveness," all I'd been doing is destroying me.
Yeah. And not staying in that victim role, I think, is really big, because I think a lot of people do feel like they've been victimized in life.
And they have. They
And-
have been victimized.
And as a child, you need somebody to stick up for you. But part of being an adult and being in the adult position is that you are the one that sticks up for yourself. You're
Right.
the one that draws the boundaries to protect you
Mhm.
and decide what you will or will not put up with, not to put up with. You don't have to put up with toxic behavior.
Mhm.
You can remove yourself, but realizing that you do have choices so that you're no longer a victim.
I've got a friend of mine that says, if you ever want to see Chuck's disappearing act, just be disrespectful to him,
Yeah.
and he'll just disappear every time. He's gone, and you're looking around going, well, where'd Chuck go? Because it's not about changing the other person. It's about taking care of yourself.
Right.
And Jesus, I learned that from Jesus. He just was with people, and then he would be gone. And sometimes I wonder if it was because they were saying disrespectful, dishonoring things to him. He just walked away. See, because you can't engage with somebody that doesn't want to learn about what you're saying anyway. So the only thing you can do is take care of yourself. And I'm not talking about disappearing forever or leaving your family and never coming back. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about taking care of yourself and just know that whenever somebody is not kind to you and disrespectful to you, you're just going to go to the restroom, or you're going to go on an errand or something, to let them know that you're too valuable to be disrespected. And we've said that on other programs too, because that's the truth. You're way too valuable to be disrespected. You need to be kind yourself, and you deserve kindness from other people.
Yeah.
Say, well, how do I find those kind people? You can pray for them. The Bible said that David prayed for Jonathan in the Bible because they needed each other, and I believe they affirmed each other, and they really became encouragement to each other. So you can pray for that. I prayed for Barb to come in my life. I didn't even know she existed, but I prayed for a godly wife. I prayed for somebody that would honor me and love me and accept me as a person, and God answered that prayer, and I'm so grateful to the Lord for bringing
I feel
Barb
the
into
same.
my life, because
Yeah, me too.
we teach these skills to not only help you, but we're teaching this stuff because we try to live this. Are we perfect at it? No.
No.
But we're trying to live the things that we're teaching because it works. We know the other way doesn't work.
Yeah.
We've tried the other way. That never has worked, never will.
Yeah.
So it's, why not try something different?
That's right. And we talked a little bit about triggers, and I think I heard you mention one time that if you're explaining something to me and I don't understand, so not being understood, is that a trigger for
Can be a
you?
trigger, yeah.
And how does that make you feel when you're not understood?
Well, the old tapes of childhood can get in there and start running and says, you're just a big mistake with buttons and zippers, and see, your own wife can't even understand what you're saying. So
that makes you feel deficient.
makes you feel deficient. So I could react to that and really get defensive and get angry about it.
Yeah.
And don't even know that it's from a childhood memory.
Right. And I think that would be a good place to and you're in the child position, like you said, when that's happening, that trigger sends you back into the child position. And sometimes it takes us a minute to get back in touch with the adult.
Oh yeah.
But mirroring things with me might help us clarify. And we've talked about the mirroring skill on some other programs, and that's where we repeat back or paraphrase back to the other person what we think we're hearing for clarification. Because if I'm not understanding you, then I need you to maybe explain it in a different way or something, so I can really get what you're saying.
Well, and that's where the timeouts are so valuable, because I need to take a timeout, go to the restroom, look in the mirror, and say, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling so escalated over what she's saying or what just happened?
Yeah.
And then I can sometimes, well, not sometimes, but I can ask the Lord to show me what that's connected to. And I might get a thought of something that happened when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then I pray about that. And I say, okay, Lord, thanks for revealing that information so that I can deal with it.
And
Yeah.
if you explained that to me when the Lord revealed that to you, that it was associated with something in your childhood,
Yeah.
if you could be vulnerable enough to share that with me,
Hmm.
that would give me compassion for
Sure.
you,
Yeah.
because it would help me understand why you had the strong reaction. And instead of thinking, oh, you're just being mean to me, I would see, oh my gosh, that hurt that little boy in you, and that's why that happened. And that would cause me to have compassion and be more, less likely to return with an angry retort myself.
Yeah.
But so that vulnerability is something we're going to talk about next time. We're going to talk about intimacy and vulnerability as part of that.
Yeah. And when you're angry, the last thing you want to do is become vulnerable.
Mm.
So you're protecting the vulnerability, which definitely affects the relationship. See?
Yeah, and I think anger sometimes is a person's go-to emotion. They don't feel comfortable expressing hurt or frustration. It's Anger feels like power.
Mhm.
And so if they go with the angry response, it makes them feel more in control,
Oh yeah.
less vulnerable. And I think sometimes we learn that
Hmm.
how to respond by what we saw modeled in the home too. If our parents handled it in an angry way, then we learn to be angry.
Well, and hurting people hurt people.
Right.
So that does protect vulnerability,
Yeah.
to be angry, and then the person goes away from you and you go away from them, and then you're not vulnerable anymore. See,
Yeah.
but you're isolated, and nothing is resolved.
Yeah.
So we talked about closure and how to get closure on another program, and oh boy, there's so many people that don't have a clue how to get to closure. It's like I know how to get into the problem, I just don't know how to close it out.
Yeah.
So all these issues are going around, and nothing's been resolved.
Mhm.
So then there's these explosions that happen all the time, and we think, man, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
I didn't think this event right now would merit that kind of explosion. Well, it's not just about that event, it's about lots of other things that's never been closed out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if you're someone that feels like oh man, I've got books and books full of issues that's never been closed. Okay, and you're saying, how do I start? Take them one at a time. One at a time, and when you close that out, cross that off,
Yeah. That's
and
good.
you'll eventually get to every one of them, because they all need to be closed out. They really do. You're not going to be close and intimate
Mhm.
with your partner until you close out those issues that are blocking you
Mhm.
from really being kind and being considerate and being at peace. See, there's no peace when there's
Mhm.
unresolved issues.
Right. And I think that's one way that we can be obedient to God too, is to be kind.
Yes.
We can be kind to Him by obeying and forgiving, and sometimes we even need to forgive God when He doesn't do what we wanted Him to do. But I think that kindness for me to be kind to you is a way of me obeying God.
Mhm.
For me to be kind to people in my other relationships is a way of being obedient to God.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
He wants us to be kind because
yes.
that's who he is.
Yeah.
And, we sing songs in church about to be more like Jesus, and to live like Jesus and walk like Jesus and talk like him. Well, that's one of the ways that we can do that. See,
Mhm.
you've got to deal with the things that are not working. You've got to bring them out in the open, into the light, and get with a counselor if you can't do it on your own. That's what counselors are for. And if it's not a good counselor, go to somebody else. Don't stay with the counselor that's not working for you. But there's good ones out there, just like there's good mechanics, bad mechanics. There's good doctors, there's bad doctors. Counselors are the same way. But if you hook up with one that really resonates with you, that you can really receive from, then that's who you stay with. But you've got to be able to be accountable to somebody for change. You've got to,
having a mentor.
oh yeah, having a mentor that you're talking about real stuff with, and say, well, I never do that. I don't tell people what's really going on with me. Well, that's why you feel like you stay stuck, because
Right.
the Lord reveals to heal. See, God's not trying to reveal things to embarrass you or just put you down. He's revealing things to set you free.
Right.
Well, God bless you today, and it's been great to be with you. And we're going to be continuing to talk about topics that's going to help you. And I encourage you to not only watch yourself, but tell other people to tune in.
And
Maybe
let me
watch
close
them.
with a good statement.
Yes.
I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I wanted to close with, here's something to remember. Just be kind all the time, no matter what.
No matter what you feel, just do it. Just do it. Okay? God bless you today. Thanks for being with us.
If you are blessed by this ministry, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also make donations at chucklewisministries.com. Join us to keep uncovering the tools to build better relationships together. Let's do this again next week.